This is the story of Jacob. God promised Abraham that he would be the father of a great family. But Abraham and Sarah had only one son, Isaac. Isaac married Rebekah, and for a long time they had no children until, with God's help, they had two boys, Esau and Jacob. Esau and Jacob were twins, but they were not like each other. Esau was big, and Jacob was small. Esau had red hair, and Jacob had dark hair. Esau was hairy, and Jacob had smooth skin. Esau liked to hunt, and Jacob stayed by the tent to watch the sheep. Esau was born first, so he was the one who was supposed to have his father's things when he died. Isaac loved Esau best, but Rebekah loved Jacob best. Jacob thought it was not fair that Esau was treated special because he was the oldest. They had been born on the same day. Once, Esau came home from hunting, and he was very hungry. Jacob had made some soup. Esau asked his brother for some. "I will give it to you," said Jacob, "if you will agree that I can have father's things when he dies." Esau did not even think about it. "What use are father's things when I am so hungry?" He took the soup. And now there was an agreement between the brothers that Jacob would be like the oldest son. Isaac was old. He could not see. He asked Esau to go hunting and make the stew he liked best. Then Isaac, his father, would bless him. Rebekah overheard this. She thought Jacob should get the blessing. So she and Jacob made Isaac special stew from a lamb instead of a wild animal. They put animal skins on Jacob's arms so that he would seem hairy, and they dressed him up like Esau. Jacob went to his father with the stew. Isaac believed that Jacob was Esau, and he laid his hands on him and blessed him. When Esau returned with stew for his father, he discovered that Isaac had been tricked into giving away the blessing that should have been his. He was angry, and he threatened to kill Jacob. Rebekah asked Isaac to send Jacob away to her family to find a wife. Isaac agreed. Jacob set off quickly through the desert towards Haran, where his mother's family lived. One night, he found a rock and made it his pillow. While he slept, he dreamt of a great ladder stretching all the way into heaven. There were angels climbing up and down the ladder, and God seemed to be above and around and beside the place. A voice said, "I am the God of Abraham and Isaac. I will give this land on which you lie to you and to your descendants. Through them all the world will be blessed. I am with you, and I will bring you back to this land." When Jacob awoke, he knew that he had heard God in his dream. He poured oil onto the stone so that he would always remember what God had said. And he named the place Bethel, which means the house of God. Jacob traveled on and came to a well where the shepherds watered their flocks. There was a beautiful young woman there with her father's sheep. She was Rachel, the daughter of his mother's brother. Jacob wanted to make her his wife, and so he offered to work for her father Laban for 7 years in exchange for his permission to marry Rachel. After 7 years, the wedding took place. But when Jacob saw his wife's face, he discovered that he had been tricked and that he was married to Leah, Rachel's sister. Laban told Jacob that he could marry Rachel too if he worked for another 7 years. Finally, Jacob and Rachel were married. And then Jacob worked 7 more years for his uncle Laban. In all this time, God blessed Jacob and his work, and Laban's flocks grew. Jacob worked for his uncle for 21 years. Then God came close to him and told him that it was time for him to return home. And so Jacob packed up all that he had and began the journey home with his family. Jacob was afraid to meet his brother again. Esau had threatened to kill him and was coming to meet him with 400 men. Jacob prayed to God and sent presents to Esau. That night, he went apart from his family to pray. At that point, a strange thing happened. Someone struggled with Jacob all night. The stranger touched Jacob's thigh and held on to that joint so that his joint came out of place. But Jacob held on until morning. The stranger said, "Let me go." But Jacob knew that this was no ordinary person. He refused to let go until the stranger had given him a blessing. The blessing said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob. You will be called Israel, for you have struggled with God and with people and have prevailed." And he blessed him. And so Jacob called that place where he struggled Peniel, which means the face of God, because he knew that he had been struggling with God. Jacob caught up with his family, limping because of his injury. He went in front of them to meet Esau. He bowed down to the ground as Esau came near. Then his brother ran to him and put his arms around him. Finally, old Isaac died, and his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. Jacob, or Israel, as he was now called, had 12 sons. Each of these sons became the head of a tribe. And now there were 12 tribes in the great family, and it was called Israel. Now, I wonder, what part of this story do you like best? I wonder what part is the most important. I wonder what part is about you, or what part you were in. Finally, I wonder if we can leave out any of the story and still have all we need. Well, that concludes this story of Jacob. Thank you for listening. Look forward to seeing you again next week on this channel. Thanks for being here. Goodbye.